Thank you very much, Dan. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay. Where's the button? Oh, turn it on. Oh yes, that works. I've done that before. Hello. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm absolutely thrilled to be sitting in such fine company. I will disclose that Deborah and I worked together 20 years ago, and actually we haven't really caught up since then, so it was such a great opportunity for me to see you in person and have this time to speak to you about this extraordinary book. I just wonder, has anybody read it? Just out of interest? Okay, that's just good to know. It's such a brilliant book. It's so good. So I don't want to give too much away, but I want to ask a lot of questions. And this is not something I normally do, but I just couldn't pass up this opportunity to just delve in a little bit to how you went about writing it. It seems an incredibly daunting task, Deborah, to write a memoir. And I just wonder what came first. You know, did you think I want to write a memoir, or did you think I want to write a book, a play? How did it all come about?
Hello, everybody. I do feel like I just died and had my eulogy read out. Yeah, if that was it, I wouldn't be unhappy.
No.
Okay, so it's an incredibly daunting task. I'd always wanted to write. I love writing. I write, lots of letters home and travel blogs and diary entries and songs, obviously, and I have notebooks stuffed with things. And in 2019, Willie and I put out an album called The Words of Men, and we did a tour, which was also a celebration of the release of The Words of Men and a revisiting of the then 26-year-old Bitch Epic. And we did all the main centres, and they went really, really well. And then we went out to the regions, and they didn't go as well, let's say. And there was a couple of shows right at the end, and they were in Queensland. I mean, don't tell anyone. I love Queensland. I go into Queensland. But anyway, in my love of Queensland.
Yeah.
But these particular places were not places that I should have been. But I was trying to get as many gigs as possible for my keyboard player, who had come a long way, i.e. the Netherlands, to play with us. He was Australian, but he recorded these things, and he came back for the tour. And in my haste of trying to flesh out this list of gigs, I picked some extremely unsavoury places to play. And there are terrific places to play in Queensland, but these two were really not them. And after the last gig, when I was it was a story that actually had to be excised from the book, but we got off the stage after, begging the 10 people that were sitting at the back of the room to come forward and take their eyes off the betting screens just for a moment so that they could concentrate. And they gave us a good reception. They really did, the 5 of them that were there. And then we came off stage after our 2-hour performance, and there was this woman wailing. And then the bass player came running after. This is a very long story. It's got nothing to do with it. But I haven't actually told it, and I thought, well, maybe you'd like to hear it. Anyway, and the bass player comes running after. There's a woman out there, and she said, you promised to play Will You Miss Me When You're Sober? And I went, what? It's not on either of those records. Why would I do that? And then, in the deep, dark recesses of my memory, I realised that she had contacted me on Facebook a couple of months ago and said, oh, I'd really love you to play Will You Miss Me When You're Sober? And I'd said, yeah, sure, of course I can do that. Totally forgot, of course, because it was some months later. There were some other things on my mind. And so I went, all right, okay. And I came back out again, and I found her, and I said, look, I'm going to sign some merchandise for the people that are here, and then I'll get to you. And she was a bit drunk. She was very tired and emotional, let's say. And as I signed some stuff, she got more and more aggressive and more tired and more emotional, let's say. Anyway, by the time the rest of the punters had cleared off, she And I said, well, come on, I've got my guitar out of the case. Everything is being packed up around us. The lights are starting to get turned off, although not the betting screens. They were still going. And she'd gone back to the bar, and I'm sitting there in the room, and her friend is coming to sing harmonies. And but she's gone. She's just yelling at the barmaid, trying to get more vodka or tequila or whatever it is. And I'm just going, oh my God, what is this? What is my career? I'm singing to the friend of a drunk who doesn't even give us... Anyway, it was a clarifying moment, let's say. I went away after that. We had a few weeks holiday, really long holiday actually. It was beautiful. And I'm thinking, I need a new creative mountain to climb. There's something else that I need to be doing here. And I thought, I'll try and give writing a book a try. I wanted to do one for a long time. Anyway, it was very, very daunting, the idea of writing a book. So what I did was, I downloaded a list of my song titles from the APRA website. That's not the business thing. That's the Australasian Performing Rights Association, which is a publishing hub for composers, and they have a list of your songs. And I downloaded the list, and I decided that I would write 100 essays with 100 song titles. And so I wrote a memoir in alphabetical order. Which is really dumb because, you know, if you're talking about an essay that's in A, but a song title that starts with the letter A, and then another song title that starts with the letter Y, but they're kind of in a similar time frame, but you've written them 2 years apart. Yeah. It's a bit hard to kind of keep tabs on it all. And I realised after I'd written 210,000 words, and of course, sorry, I should mention that there was a lockdown as part of this, so that facilitated a lot of words being written. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yes, I think so. I'm interested about that because did you didn't want to? I suppose what struck me about this book is its connection to song. Mm-hmm. That it's absolutely connected to, I would say, to your being, and that the song is what has made the story rather than the other way round in this instance, and that chronology is not really that interesting actually. No. And I love the way the book starts. It starts because it doesn't start at the beginning. It's not like I was born, you know, in Melbourne and
on a rainy night.
Yeah.
I think it was raining though.
It starts with a girl with a dream, and she wants to know how she can fulfill that dream, and I think we can all relate to that. So I was so fascinated by your connection to song, and I just wanted to ask you straight off what your first memory is of singing.
Okay, that's a good question. I think I was always singing. In the shower, I used to belt out the Barbara Streisand, Liza Minnelli, Judy Garland songs of my father's musical theatre collection. So there was a lot of that, I guess. But I was probably about, I don't know, 7 or 8. So, but I'm sure there must have been memories before that. But I think maybe that's when my voice, or 9 or 10, maybe when it started getting more powerful. And my mother thought I was a terrible shrieker. She didn't say as much, but that was the implication. But I didn't care. I thought I was okay. I thought I was pretty good. I never had a problem with not being confident.
No, it's extraordinary the confidence with which you go into starting, auditioning for a band and getting a job as a lead singer. When in fact you had thought that you might want to be an actor. Is that correct?
I did. I really liked acting. So I avoided music at school. My mother says the most musical thing I did was to wait until everyone was in class and then drop a large cymbal down a set of metal stairs. I'm sure I didn't do it on purpose. But
Sure.
But no, but I didn't like the singing teacher much, Miss Gibson. She was very bossy, the music teacher, and I should have, because it would have been really, really helpful had I done that, and I would have, had wonderful experiences in the madrigal choir. And I look back on that and think, I really missed out. I was an idiot. But anyway, we all do idiotic things. I've done quite a lot of them. And I didn't, but I loved acting, and I really loved the drama teacher, and so I would audition for everything, and I'd often just be one of the dead people in Thornton Wilder's Our Town. I was happy. I'd sit on the chair just being dead, and I'd have a line. I was thrilled, and I was often cast, because I went to an all-girls school. I was often cast as the male character, because I was the tallest, one of the tallest, and not athletic at all, like completely uncoordinated. So it was, it was just, I was a bloke in the school plays.
But you also got to play good character roles too, which are often the best roles. If
Yes,
you're playing, the evil. The evil.
Yeah, but there were lots of good actors in my year, so it was fiercely contested, these parts. So, yeah.
You write really beautifully.
Oh, Jane Menelaus went to our school.
Right.
So,
Very good actress.
There you go. That's right. Jeffrey Rush's wife.
You write really beautifully about growing up in Melbourne too. I don't want to give too much away, because it's such a good read. Like, it's just so worth just not knowing much and just going along the journey, because it's so beautifully constructed. But you do write really beautifully about Melbourne, and I wondered what you think Melbourne has given you. Is that too big a question? Like, as an artist, what do you think the role Melbourne has played in your...
Well, it's made me love hills. Because there aren't any. I just remember when I first came to Sydney, I was like, there are hills. You can just go up and around a corner, and there's a view.
Yeah.
And we would just be driving around in these large canyons of streets with tram lines overhead and buildings kind of caving in. I don't know, what did Melbourne give me? I mean, Melbourne had a great music scene. It did have a fantastic music scene. But then I also, the band, the big band that I was in, not the Benders, but Do Re Mi, was a Sydney band.
Yeah.
And both Dorlin and I fled Melbourne and decided that Sydney was the place for us. But it's interesting, because I guess I really appreciated Melbourne when I went back. I left Melbourne when I was 21, and I came back when I was 31. So it was 10 years of living in Sydney and London and Los Angeles and Amsterdam and a little bit of New York, and so I'd gotten around a bit, and when I decided to move back to Australia, because Virgin had ousted me, and I was gonna put a record out here, I decided I should give living in Melbourne a go as an adult. And at that point, I realised it was a really different atmosphere in a musical sense to living in Sydney. In Sydney, we were all we were really in our own enclave, and it was much more competitive. So we didn't kind of do cross-pollinisation with other bands. You just wouldn't go and kind of guest on a Midnight Oil thing or whatever. It was just, people didn't. They just stuck to their own, and it was competitive.
Yeah.
But you came to Melbourne, and everybody's playing with everybody, and that was very exciting for me. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, you really get the sense that you really are very inspired by other musicians and by playing live and by collaboration and I think I was about 12 when the Takeaways played their hit song Sweet and Sour, and I was really into Sweet and Sour. I think that was the first time I heard your voice, and then I was so I would have been 13 or 14 when Man Overboard was a really big hit. So you've always been like a sort of older sister to me in my journey, like a really cool, like fucking just great older sister who just who just kind of leads the way and accepts you for who you are and says don't don't take it. Just be yourself.
Yeah, good.
And you were, that Do Re Mi was really, incredibly successful. I mean, you were together for 8 years. That's a long time in the life of a band, especially for young people. To just stay together is a feat.
Yeah.
Can you tell us though about the process of as you mentioned, getting dropped from the label and moving from being in a band to becoming Deborah Conway, which is also kind of a real responsibility to be yourself, not to be kind of in something that you've created and you can hide behind, but suddenly to be you. So can you tell us a bit about that time?
Yeah, I can. So Do Re Mi had gone over to London to make a third album for Virgin, and after a period of time, the atmosphere amongst the four of us was becoming a little bit poisonous. And we weren't getting on. It was we weren't writing good songs. Virgin had basically said, "Look, we don't really want to put a third Do Re Mi album out at this point." But this is the negotiations they were having with our manager. But what we could do is we'll put a solo record out of Deborah, and then we'd come back and revisit the Do Re Mi project. And he passed this on to us, and we were all kind of like a bit sceptical about it. But to be honest, I had never even thought about becoming a solo artist at this stage. It just hadn't even occurred to me. But the atmosphere between us was we'd reached such a nadir that I needed a way out. And so I said, okay, yes, I'll do it. And then it felt so good getting away from these guys. Thank God. Thank God. We're almost all friends now, not all of us. Helen and I are very good friends. But anyway, it's another story. I said, okay, I'll do it. But the thing was, I had no idea what kind of a solo record I was going to make. I had no thought. I'd never given any thought to making a solo record. So I just kind of, I boldly went, as I often do, incautiously went, oh yes, well I could make a dance record, just forgetting momentarily that I don't write dance songs and I actually can't dance. Seemed like a bit of a hiccup, but never mind. I thought, oh, this is good. And they had Nina Cherry on their books, and I really liked Nina Cherry. I thought she was great. But the kind of songs that I was writing were nothing like Nina Cherry, and it was a kind of, I mean, it's interesting, it was like the Israelites having escaped Egypt and then having to have gone through 40 years in the desert. That's basically I had to do my 40 years in that, which was contracted into 2, thank God.
But it took 2 years.
It took 2 years to figure out that the record that I had made stank. Oh. And there was nothing that I wanted to keep. I mean, I went through many producers and there was no one kind of in charge really, except for me. And I think, they were happy with the second prize, which was, a great big tax offset against the success of Phil Collins and whoever else was being successful on the label. And so, it all just ended. I mean, we even recorded another single, which was Bad Company's Feel Like Making Love. As a dance version.
In fact, you put a very, very scathing review in the book.
I needed to.
Yeah.
Because I deserved it. I should have written it myself.
And was this in LA? Was this when you were?
No, that was in London. This was all in London, and there were fantastic adventures that were going on in parallel with that as well. But musically, it was a completely. It was wandering in the wilderness and the desert for 2 years and not knowing. And then as I was sitting there in this little flat off the Portobello Road, trying to realizing that I made some just shocking blunders, I was starting to write, and I was writing the songs that were coming out of me, that were organic and real and were my experiences and were telling my story and in my voice, and suddenly it was all coming together, and they didn't sound anything like the material that was on this record that I was supposedly about to put out. But fortunately Virgin kind of they knew, and they dumped me, they dumped my record, and there I was back in Melbourne, and you know, my Virgin debt was wiped because I was wiped from Virgin.
But you got scooped up by Mushroom?
I was scooped up by Mushroom.
There's this, and the album that we're talking about is String of Pearls. Mm-hmm. And there's this great chapter where you talk about meeting Willie, and it's really romantic, and it really captures sort of a time where, you know, everything feels right, you know, in a time in your life where everything just feels like it's just kind of clicking into place, and also you're finally in a band. You feel like you're in a band again, and I reread that bit a bit because. You also do this beautiful thing where you put your lyrics to the songs, you know, at the end of a chapter. The chapter heading is a title of a song, and then there are lyrics to that song. So as you're reading this beautiful poetry as well as this beautiful prose. And I actually put it on Spotify. So I listened. The first time I read it, I just read it, but then I listened to it. And the song, and I felt like I was there. So I urge you to do that. I've actually made a Spotify playlist of the songs. So if you want it, I'm called Justine 11, but I don't know who I am. But if you want it, it's got in order all the songs, because I start towards the end of the book. I started to read it like that, and it was so good. It's also beautiful just to read it straight poetry, because it's really incredible songwriting. But what I realised was that romance that I felt, which is obvious and still is today, but was actually more for you, and for you having kind of found your voice, and finally kind of breaking through and going, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be led by a record company. I don't need people to tell me what is going to work or what isn't. I'm going to do it. And I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
So that obviously I just want to ask, because I think people might like to know, what's it like when you're driving along and you hear your song played on the radio?
Oh, it's the best. There's nothing better. I mean, I don't really know what heroin's like, but I reckon it's just so good. Like, it's really exciting. And the other thing that's really exciting is when someone else covers your song. That's also really exciting. Yeah, that's really fun. Like, oh wow, they really liked it that much. They would do it.
In the movies, there's always like people in it, like everyone's together and everyone's like, you know, hugging each other and squealing. But I think in the book you're on your own, aren't you?
When that happened. So yes, after that very, very long period of just, you know, what am I doing? Coming back to Melbourne and recording String of Pearls, and then whenever it came out a few months later. And then It's Only the Beginning was all over the airwaves, and literally I was in my car one day, my little, what was it? Can't remember now. Well, it was irrelevant, I suppose.
Carmen Gear?
No, I think it was the Carmen. I was going to say should have been the Carmen Gear, but I think the Carmen Gear had already gone. Must have been sold. But and I turned on the radio, and it was on, and then I just was, I don't know, I was flicking around, and it was on another radio station as well, and then it was on a third radio station. It was literally like it was on 3 radio stations at once, which was, it was unspeakably glorious.
And probably not something that people will experience now. No, but like even if you really, like that just doesn't happen.
No, I guess it doesn't. It doesn't
around.
Really, no. Well, you can't. Yeah, well, there's not many radios. There's not many radios in cars these days that you can push the buttons on either. Or CD players for that matter.
No. You talk about that time as being sort of like, you know, an extended adolescence, where you kind of are bolstered by the record companies, but you also feel like that they're sort of exploiting you as well, and just, like you say, writing you off for tax reasons or whatever else works in the business sense. But you still manage to kind of from the void of being dropped by the label and forging your own way. you managed to kind of become someone who cultivates culture and become incredibly entrepreneurial. Like, did you know that you had that in you to be, or do you think it was sort of, like I said, the void that sort of was filled? Because what you've gone on to do is some extraordinary.
I always like doing garage sales. You know?
Yeah.
I like that kind of. I like the business aspect of it, and I think I had absolutely just paid no attention whatsoever to business, and had only been, you know, just strictly being an artist, and it was very easy to do in a rock and roll band in the early 1980s, and everybody was taking care of everything, and then you know, I mean, and I don't know, it never really occurred to me that I never made any money. Isn't that funny? I mean, people do this work and they make money, and I never thought about, oh well, I never really made any money out of that, and I never really made any money out of String of Pearls or Bitch Epic, or it took me a really long time to figure out, well, wait a minute, someone's making money. I don't know why it took me that long, but when I worked it out, yeah. and then I thought, well, there must be another way to do this, and it just made me think, I'm glad I didn't get bitter or resentful. It's just a pointless exercise. But I'm glad I got imaginative about it and decided to take the reins and own it. And that was an important step. And for me, you know, those things, trying to figure out, it's like, you know, trying to crack a puzzle, trying to figure something out about how you can do things slightly differently in the continuing changing climate of what it is to, you know, work in the music business, which is a constantly changing beast. And it is, you know, it's like we're always reinventing things, and it gets easier for musicians. You know, the technology revolution that has enabled musicians to make a perfectly great sounding record for radio in their back room on equipment that doesn't cost that much money. But then on the flip side, you know, streaming services come into play, and other things. But there was a window there, and we leapt through that window.
But you still keep leaping. So then, it's so interesting to hear about the parlour shows that you did for your album Summertown. That you were the first to do that, and to go into people's lounge rooms and play for them.
Justine, I think that's one of the things that I am most proud of.
Yeah,
it was.
I can imagine.
It was a brilliant idea.
But also broad, which was also, you know, female singer-songwriters and artists singing each other's songs and their own songs. I think that's also a kind of ahead of its time too. So you do really set the bar at every turn, Deb. How much work do you have to do behind the scenes when you write a memoir with your family? Like, how do you have to talk to them? Did you talk to them before you wrote it, or how?
Are you kidding?
They would never have let you do it?
Oh, no, I'm not going to ask permission of my family to expose all their secrets. No, they would never have said yes. Of course not. But my mother is still talking to me, and that is fantastic. I really didn't want to. I didn't want to upset her, but I was going to. It was just that, you know, you have to be honest. If you're going to bother to write a memoir, you shouldn't do it like Cheryl Curnow. That's what I think. Remember that?
Yeah.
That little omission.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, you have to. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it? You have to tell the truth.
Exactly. You have to tell the truth. Yeah. You have to tell the truth, and you have to be. And I think you have to be as fair and as honest with yourself as with everybody else. And I loved writing this because I loved the fact that I would start writing something and I would end up in a place that I had never expected that I would end up. And it was really fun. It was like an adventure.
You're a very assured writer. You can really tell that you write a lot. Your voice is very clear, and it feels familiar, like it's you. It's definitely you, but it's also really beautifully kind of lyrical.
I needed an editor. My beautiful editor is sitting here. There were a few editors, but it was the chronological thing had to come into play. I mean, it was thematic as well, but it definitely benefited enormously from the generosity of a much more experienced writer than myself, and so that was great. I learned a lot. I'm going to write a bestseller now. Wilbur Smith, watch out.
Well, no, seriously though, are you considering any other kind of writing now that you've done it? Is it something you?
It'll be fun. I don't know. Well, I think maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. It'd be good to write some more songs first.
Well, that also just brings me to the show, which is also part of this. This book, which I'm very intrigued by, because again, at the cutting edge, I think you're going boldly where a lot of musicians should go, which is into a more theatrical space. And so Songs from the Book of Life is the stage show that has been adapted from the book that both Willie and Deborah...
You've heard the record, you've read the book, now come and see the show.
Exactly.
See, that's true. I'm good at garage sales. No, I know, it was good. Well, the lockdown just kept on going. It just didn't stop. And so, we thought, well, a marketing idea. It's a great, I can't remember which one of us thought of it.
We didn't know if your book was going to be published.
No, yeah, we did.
Think we could put on a show.
That's true. We didn't know. I mean, I hadn't looked for a publisher at that point. But we did definitely think that we could put on a show, and it was a good idea, and so we wrote this show. And
you've got no slouches involved. No. Like who's Michael Cantor is the director of your show.
Yes.
So
and he's great. He's a very, very generous, beautiful, creative man, and he's really helped us shape this thing. And we've got Stephanie Lake. Do you know who Stephanie Lake is? She's a great dancer. She's a choreographer.
Do you do choreography in the show?
Maybe.
Come and see
it. Possibly not like any dancing you've seen quite before. But it's there, and we're an amazing set designer, Chloe Greaves, and an incredible visual designer, Nicholas Rue. It's a beautiful cast of creative people that really worked very hard to put this thing together, and it's a very unusual piece. And we've just done a week of it at the Fairfax studio in Melbourne, and we are coming to Sydney early next year. So it's not announced yet, but it will be really soon, I think. You've got to get on our Instagram page. Maybe. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. I'm not allowed to say it, but possibly.
That would be great. Oh, yes. How are we going for time?
1940. You got a clock?
Oh, there it is. Oh, okay. I just want to say one more thing about the sort of last part of the book. It's a section called Blessed, and there's all these like moments of just reflecting on all the incredible, wonderful things that have happened that you have loved. That was just one of my favourite parts of the book.
Really?
And in terms of structure, I just thought it was really beautifully placed. It's like this. Anyway, I won't say any more. Just read the book, okay? Just read it, because it's just beautifully conceived. The whole thing. It gives you that sort of uplifting feeling, but with a little catch in your throat. And I think that's probably my favourite feeling in the world, is that. So. And you just do it so beautifully. It's about love and about pain, and it's a book of life, and it's really, really beautiful. So thank you so much for
Thank you very much, Justine.
This conversation. I've loved it. Thank you so much for listening. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes.
You've just mentioned, it sounds like you started writing the book before you got a publisher, is that correct?
Yes.
So tell us about that, and how long did it take you to get one?
Well, I guess, we need to repeat the question.
So the question was, how long, you wrote the book before you found a publisher, and how long did it take to get one once you had finished? Is that right?
And what was the experience like?
Yes.
Was it easy, difficult? What?
Okay, so I didn't want anybody looking over my shoulder and going, give me a deadline. So I didn't want to, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to do this thing, and I didn't know if it was going to be any good. So I just didn't want any witnesses at the early stage of this thing, you know, to have to prove myself to. And so I just kept on writing until I had written 100 essays under the 100 songs titles. And then I tried to find a publisher. And that was actually a little bit hard. It was a little bit hard because there was this unwieldy manuscript but it was kind of, I guess it was like saying, here's a jigsaw puzzle, you put it together. And people were a bit nervous about that. And then I found this fabulous publisher who is in our audience tonight, Jane Polfreman from Allen Unwin, who just said without reserve that she loved it and that she wanted to see it and that she wanted to put it out, and it was like my heart sang. It was an incredible moment of, I don't know, coming home or something, or just being seen. It was fantastic. So it was a long time actually between finishing, I don't know, months, quite a number of months, kind of nerve-wracking months, because once you've, you know, written 210,000 words, you think you might have a book, and I had to find someone who thought that I did too, and I did. And Malcolm Knox was, you know, the conduit for this and helped me, you know, shape it into a beautiful river of great stories, and Jane read that and went, yes, let's do it. It's good. Yes. I should also mention that, you know, my first reader, Mr. William Zigger.
Yes.
Actually, I didn't let him read it. I had to read it to him. Every day. Willie! Can't listen to this. And then he'd criticise it. I'd say, no, it's not enough. It's too long, it's too short, it's too I want more.
Well, Willie writes a very beautiful introduction in this book. Actually, it's beautiful. It's beautifully written. It's just, yeah. Anyway,
I think so too.
Yeah. And once again, it's got music in it. It's about music. It's about sound. It's about the power of music. About the power of song in our lives. Anyway, it's really beautiful. Any other questions?
When you write a song, are you thinking about you, or are you thinking about the audience? Is it just cathartic for you, or you think, oh, this is going to impact people? What's the motivation?
The question is, when you write a song, are you writing for you or are you writing for your audience? What's the motivation for songwriting?
I think it's always a mistake to write it for your audience. I think you really have to write for you, because you don't really know who your audience is. Although, interestingly, we did write a song called Don't You Forget Me, which ends up being on the words of men. And I always had this vision of 1,000 lesbians with their big lighters, holding them up and waving gently in the air. And I always thought that was rather beautiful, and I loved it. And I was very excited about that. I'm not sure that it ever. Well, I don't know. Big lighters are not a bit of a thing of the past. I guess it's the phones. It's the phones now. Yeah, it's kind of happened. I didn't ask them their sexual orientation, actually. But it was, you know what I mean. Anyway, it was good.
I think what you see in the book, which is really beautiful, is this journey of a songwriter, of songwriters, and how they work really hard and they go deeper, and it's better for it. It's better for you. You are better for it, and we are better for it. That you just keep tolling away at it and trying to find what you need to say, what you want to say, what you don't need to say, you know, and I think you see that over the kind of the lyrics as you read the book. They just get better and better. Which is also a wonderful part of the book that you don't expect that you'll get from it, but you do. Anyway. I'm just really going.
If I could blush, I would definitely be blushing. Not much of a blusher. I'll tell you, it's much harder to write a song than it is to write a book. It really is, because you know you have to be so much brevity in a song, and you have to pack so much into such a small amount of lines, and you know, and there are so many songs. I mean, there are so many books in the world too, but there are so many songs in the world, and you have to find a way of saying something, probably that's been said a gazillion times before, and just in a particular way that's unique to you and that works and that catches an emotional moment for you and for the people who are relating to that. And when we do that. And it doesn't happen all the time, but when we do, it's just so beautiful and satisfying, and
it is for us too. Do you feel like singing a song by any chance? Unless anyone's got any other questions, or should we let's just hear a song?
Let's sing a song.
Yeah.
Yes, what about it?
Talk about that, where you were the model for James Floyd's video.
Oh, yes, I did do that. But we're going to play a song now. Hang on. Should I keep this on? Yes. Okay.
Do you want this?
Oh, I think we can turn that off now. I don't know. I'm not sure. It is off. There you go. Okay. Well, what do you think?
Willie, can I play something?
Will you miss me when you're sober? You going to the bar, are you, love?
I think I have to take that off.
We could be the Thousand Lesbians.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we could do that.
Which one?
Don't You Forget Me. I don't know. Should we do that one?
You want to do that one?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a pick? Yeah. Ooh.
You want to do Don't You Forget Me?
Yeah, we can do that.
You can do your intro.
What? Oh, when I was young.
Yeah.
All right. When I was young, older people would say to me, "When are you going to get a proper job?" And now I'm old. People ask me, "Are you still a musician?" And I say, "I think I am. You're only as good as your last gig." What can an old lady tell you that you might want to know? What can an old lady say if it's not only the beginning? Well, I gave you a piece of my heart. What else to impart on this well-worn path? Don't you forget me. You won't regret me. I still say, if you let me, let's drink together. It's easy to be seduced by those sirens' calls. You gladly handle your cock, but they want your balls. All I got is my favorite soul. And rock and roll, well, that takes its toll. Don't you forget me. You won't regret me. I still say, if you let me, let's drink together. run strong. Make way for the youth to sing their song. Well, I moved off center stage, traded all that for wisdom or rage, or a little of both. Don't you forget me, you won't regret me. I'll still sing if you let me. Let's drink together, Lord. Na 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 na. Let's drink together, Lord. Well, let's make some heaven in this place that feels like hell. Get over here, baby. Well, you know how to ring my bell. So it's you and me. Got our grandchildren on my knee. That's distinctly sexy. Don't you forget me. You won't regret me. I'll still sing if you let me. Let's drink together, Lord. Na 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 na. Let's drink together, Lord. Let's drink together, Lord. Let's drink together.